through something that we think is going to help the future of eradicating poverty and how we came upon it and what it's going to mean to helping individuals in need. And so how to give locally get started? Well, I have a son. I actually have 4 children, but this is Frankie up there. And one day we were driving and we saw a homeless person. And this is what he said to me. "Daddy, what's wrong with that man?" "He's not fortunate," I said. He was 3 years old. This was in 2009. And as only a 3-year-old kid could say, he said, "Daddy, can't you make him fortunate?" And I started thinking. I wasn't a philanthropist. I'm a practicing trial lawyer. And I started thinking. I was on a few boards, and something always bothered me. 2 things always bothered me. 2 things I haven't heard anyone talk about today. 1, how do you know when you give to an organization where your money's going? And 2, is it about the person in need or is it about the person giving? So much of the philanthropy I was involved in was about the giver, not the people who needed the help. And I bartended my way through law school, and I worked for wages. And I realized that there's a whole segment of givers who aren't looking for a tax deduction. They don't make more than $100,000 a year. They were me when I was in law school working for wages and tips. And believe me, if I gave $20 to help keep somebody's lights on and I knew where that money was going, I wouldn't care a lick about getting a tax deduction. Now, I was on a plane the other day going cross-country watching Jon Stewart, even though most people think I'm Stephen Colbert's ugly brother. And President Clinton was on. And he said that philanthropy has always been a 2-legged stool. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. The government, we definitely need the government. Definitely need them. And traditional 501c3s. Need those too. But he said the future of giving really depends on the private sector joining in as an equal partner with government and with 501c3s. Now, this was last week when I was on a plane. Frankie asked me, "Daddy, can you make them fortunate in 2009? Okay? Now, I'm out in the Silicon Valley. And what I realized Frankie had asked me was the quintessential entrepreneurial question. See a problem, fix a problem. There's a caveman and not a donut. It's a caveman making fire, and up here it is the invention of the wheel. And I started thinking a little more. Somebody used to use candles and then electricity. And then horse and buggy and a car, and this is my favorite right here coming up. I'm getting a little old, but this is what I played growing up, and then I played Pac-Man, and now my kids play Angry Birds. All of these things came from the private sector, okay? Now, this is 2009, and I did my research. This is the definition up here of what charity means in the dictionary. Benevolent goodwill toward or love of humanity. It does not define itself by being a 501c3. So often today, we're programmed to think charity equals 501c3 from the IRS tax code. But it doesn't mean that at all. Okay? So here are some statistics. In 2009, there were over 1 million 501c3 public charities registered in the U.S. Okay? Now, this is from July of this year in USA Today. Okay? So we see a disconnect. If I came to all of you, some of you are in school, some of you are in the workplace, some of you work for the public sector, and I said there's a problem. Poverty in America is rising. Okay? I didn't think personally one more 501c3 would help end poverty. I thought that the people up there and the people in this room would end poverty if I said to all of you, there's someone in your community whose raising a family and has a shutoff notice, and that light's going off tomorrow, and it's freezing. It's freezing in Chicago. How are we going to get that family $200? Because it's not about me giving my micro give. It's about the family that needs the help. And how would we make sure that family really needed it? And how would we deliver the goods to the family? These were the thoughts going through my mind when Frankie asked me, can we make that person fortunate? Here's some more hard statistics up on the board. I mean, these statistics are staggering. One would ask, is this 2012 or is this 1920 or something like that? These statistics are really troubling. Poverty in America is growing, okay? So I'm out in the valley, and in Hollywood, your barista says, I'm just a barista now, but I'm really an actor, director, artist. Where I live, I go to Starbucks, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do the next Facebook. I'm just being a barista for right now. So it's in the air in the valley, and with clients I've had the great fortune to represent, household tech names, that if you see a societal problem and you think technology can solve it, go ahead and do it. And we heard earlier, failure. Can't be afraid of failure. In Silicon Valley, you're not an entrepreneur till you started a couple companies and you fail. So I said to myself, why don't we start a tech company that is a for-profit company? What does that mean? One thing and one thing only. We're not a 501c3. We don't want to be. So we've automatically taken ourselves out of tax dollars. Corporations aren't giving to 501c3s, to non-501c3s, and foundations very rarely give to 501c3s. So I made a rational decision. I think Americans want to help Americans for no other reason than that it's innate in us, and we don't want tax breaks for $25 gives, $50 gives, $100 gives. If we can become the brand that assures you your give is going to where it's going to go. So the model we came up with was that we will pre-screen families. You cannot just go on givelocally.net and put yourself up there and then do push-ups in Main Street to raise money for your cause or hula hoops or whatever. You can't do that with us. We become a de facto caseworker for families over time who are struggling with very real needs. Mothers raising kids, grandmothers raising kids in Detroit in the dead of winter, people who need blood transfusions that cost $200 to keep them alive, or they're going to wind up in the emergency room. What we do is we take the microgives and we give them directly to the doctors, the landlords, etc. So when you search, you go to Google. And when you shop, a lot of you go to Amazon. Well, we want to be the brand where when you give, and we've been doing this 2.5 years, and we've helped thousands and raised a ton of money and deliver them in in-kind services, we want you to go to givelocally.net knowing that all the families up there go through a rigorous pre-screening process. We are the only site that we work with families to pre-screen their needs and make sure they're legitimate, and then we work with them over time. Okay? So it was a great idea, I thought. But this was 2009, going into 2010, and all the things we take for granted today in the world that moves so quickly, not too many people understood my great vision. It was all in my head. And so a lot of people I knew and respected said, you got to meet this guy named Bo. Now, if you take anything from my talk, take away this. Google people after you meet them, which is what I do. And so I didn't know anything about Bo at all. Didn't know at all, except two people I respected said, you got to meet him. And he's in Atlanta, and I'm in California, and we met here in Chicago in 2010. I had launched Give Locally as a beta site and needed a CEO. And I met Bo, and the first thing I said to him is, I don't want a pain in the you-know-what partner. And we became fast friends, and Bo, take it from here.
Well, in meeting Brad, I really felt like he was on to something that was significant. It was revolutionary that he was saying that there's so many hardworking Americans out here who want to be able to help one another, but they don't know how. And they want to do it with dignity. They want it to be more of the help that you would give to a friend or a neighbor, and be able to help someone with confidence knowing that your money is going directly where you want it to go and not someone else choosing for you. My father's Ambassador Andrew Young. He's 80 years old. He still works 10 hours a day, and he's committed his life to making the world a better place. When Martin Luther King was killed in 1968, my dad and Dr. King and others had changed their focus from racism to poverty. Some 45 plus years later, we're still dealing with the same challenges. How do we make our country a better place, and how do we help each other in an efficient and transparent fashion? They were revolutionary in their time, and they had courage to look at new ways and new models of solving the world's problems. And I think that's what me and Brad are on to today, is taking the courage to try a new model and to do something different so that we as Americans are helping each other in a very dignified fashion in times of need.
So when I started this with Bo, and he became the CEO, our goal was, frankly, to see if we could help one family in this fashion. Would people give? Would people come to the site? And what would be the response? To this day, we've helped thousands of people, zero fraud, and the giving has been overwhelming. Now, I don't have friends who are celebrities other than Bo, and I don't know if he's a real celebrity or not. Depends what day he is, what day I talk to him. But these are real people from around the country that came to GiveLocally.net. They cross gender lines. They cross racial lines. They're all suffering from poverty in America. Their stories are different. And every story that comes to our site, you go to GiveLocally.net, you submit your story, I read them, because I don't want to lose touch with why I've bled, shed tears, raised money through, we're like a tech company. We have investors, my money's in it, and I never want to lose sight that what we're trying to do is help real families. And the stories we hear again and again and again is I went for government assistance and I either don't qualify or I exhausted it. I went to my church or place of worship. They did what they could. I went to the county to try to qualify for help there. I'm on food stamps or not. But you know what? I have a need that's immediate. And the other powerful thing about GiveLocally.net that we're very, very proud of, and another speaker referred to this earlier, is getting overwhelmed with your mission. Well, Give Locally, since we're not a 501c3, there is no limit to what we can take the gives for. So the types of things that we can help people with are literally unlimited. And they range from eyeglasses for an elderly woman who couldn't afford new eyeglasses because her health insurance plan didn't cover it. Rent, diapers. By the way, one of the biggest causes of child abuse is not being able to afford diapers, which forces infants to sleep in dirty diapers or not wear a diaper, which increases the way they cry and vocalize their discomfort. And that's one of the leading causes of child abuse. We deliver diapers, rent, medical, tuition. Bo, you want to tell that story about a girl who was in honor roll and couldn't afford to graduate?
Yeah, so we helped a young girl who was couldn't afford very simple needs as it related to her high school graduation. She couldn't afford the cap and gown, to take the pictures, to be able to participate in the senior picnic, things that we would take for granted so often. And what did that do for this girl to be able to participate in these exercises with the rest of her classmates when she had done everything right? She was a cheerleader, she got good grades in school, she was headed to college, but her mother, as a single mom with one kid already in community college, couldn't afford to deviate from her budget to be able to pay for these very basic things that create self-esteem. I mean, the people that we're helping are regular, everyday people who are working class folks who are doing what they can to stay ahead, but sometimes fall short. And what it takes is the courage for people like you and I to go out and say, okay, well, it really is sometimes hard to just walk into a food bank or into a homeless shelter and say, how can I help? But to be able to log on in your home and give with confidence, knowing that the person that you're helping or the family that you're helping has been pre-screened, choosing who you help, whether it's a single mom, single dad, someone from the military, someone with medical needs, choosing the location of where that person is. Well, I live in Chicago, but I grew up in Indiana. I'd prefer to help someone in Indiana. And knowing that you can track your gift and see that it actually gets to the people who are in need in an in-kind fashion. So we give gas cards so that moms can get back and forth to work. We give grocery cards so that people are able to provide groceries for their family when their budget falls short. I mean, our focus is to figure out how to eradicate poverty one person at a time, one family at a time, through a grassroots community effort that is what we as individuals can do to help each other in our own communities.
So in conclusion here, GiveLocally.net is my 5th child, and Bo has 2, so it's his 3rd child. We are immensely passionate about this, and it really keeps me up at night. My law practice is doing well. Bo is a successful entrepreneur. My children are fine. What I worry about at night is the stories of the families around America that we pre-screen and we work with over time and get to know, that they have the needs delivered in kind, never cash, through people like you all in this room and all over the country. And I invite you all to log on to GiveLocally.net and read some of the stories of the real families on here and recognize that there is no other vehicle I'm aware of where your give of $10, $15, $20 can make a direct, immediate impact, and knowing that GiveLocally.net can distribute to an electric company, a landlord, a doctor in 24 hours the very, very serious needs of our wonderful families on GiveLocally.net. And I want to thank all of you for your time. It's a pleasure being here.